Everybody, and welcome back to Trudge, Journey to Being Recovered. My name is Dexter. I am a recovered drug addict alcoholic. I'm your host. Hope everyone's doing well. Last week, we read the first half of the chapter called Two Employers, and that's what we're going to piggyback up off today. And we're going to go ahead and finish that chapter and then follow that up next week with the chapter called A Vision for You, my favorite chapter. I hope everyone's spiritual experience is taken fully hold, trusting God, relying on God, not on other people, out there helping others, living altruistically, as well as having the byproduct of not drinking or drugging happening in your life. Hopefully things are going well for you. Things are going great for me. Very, very busy. At times very stressful, but I would not have it any other way, as I am happier than I ever been, and hopefully you are too. So let's go ahead and open our book studies like we open all of them with the third step prayer. So on page 63, this is highlighted pink. Pink stands for prayers for those of you who have been following this work with me from day one. And let's take a second, invite God in, and then get right to work, okay? God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me, and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Thanks to those of you who joined in, and let's continue. We're 3/4 of the way down on page 144. The last thing we have done, it says the man must decide for himself. This is highlighted orange. Following that up, it says, you are betting, of course, that your changed attitude plus the contents of this book will turn the trick, in reference to the employer. They're talking to, in reference to the employee, the man or the woman that, is being employed, who's suffering the spiritual malady, the disease of alcoholism. We're talking about that person. In some cases it will, in others it may not. But we think that if you persevere, the percentage of successes will gratify you. As our work spreads and our numbers increase, we hope your employees may be put in personal contact with some of us. So, if you're a recovered, can't even believe I said that, recovered alcoholic or drug addict, and there are people that you work with or come into contact with, or your employer may happen to know, like my employer knows that, I'm of the recovered variety. You want to come into personal contact with these people because we're here to be of service. We're here to be of help. Just like we were helped, we're here to give freely of ourselves to those people who may want it, okay? Meanwhile, we are sure, and the words we are sure are going to be circled, we are sure a great deal can be accomplished by the use of the book alone. In reading the book, if anything else is going to educate the man or the woman in question of what the disease of alcoholism entails, and give a ton of different examples of what that life is like, and if anything, they'll have a reference point or something to compare their own lives to. On your employee's return, talk with him or her. Ask him if he thinks he has the answer, if he feels free to discuss the problem with you, if he knows you understand and will not be upset by anything he wishes to say. He will probably be off to a fast start. In this connection, can you remain undisturbed if the man proceeds to tell you shocking things? He may, for example, reveal that he has padded his expense account, or that he has planned to take your best customers away from you, or maybe that he's stolen from you. Who knows, okay? In fact, he may say almost anything if he has accepted our solution, which, as you know, it demands rigorous honesty. So I have rigorous honesty highlighted orange. Rigorous honesty is absolutely of paramount importance when it comes to doing this work. Can you charge this off as you would a bad account and start fresh with him? This is something you need to ask yourself. Let's go ahead and highlight that green as an action for the employer. If he owes you money, you may wish to make terms. I absolutely strongly suggest doing so. Absolutely come up with some kind of agreement or contract for the person in question if he owes you money, whether it was money that you floated for him to go to rehab, or lent him to get back up off his feet after he got out of prison or a detox, or whatever the situation may have been. If he speaks of his home situation, you can undoubtedly make helpful suggestions. Can he talk frankly with you so long as he does not bear business tales or criticize his associates? With this kind of employee, such an attitude will command undying loyalty. This next sentence is going to be highlighted orange. It says, the greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. These things are poison for an alcoholic or a drug addict. Wherever men are gathered together in business, there will be rivalries, and arising out of these, a certain amount of office politics. Sometimes we alcoholics have an idea that people are still trying to pull us down. Often this is not so at all, but sometimes our drinking will be used politically. One instance comes to mind in which a malicious individual was always making friendly little jokes about an alcoholic's drinking exploits. In this way, he was slyly carrying tales. In another case, an alcoholic was sent to a hospital for treatment. Only a few knew of it at first, but within a short time, it was billboarded throughout the entire company. That's pretty shitty. Naturally, this sort of thing decreased the man's choice of recovery. There's a lot of malicious people out there. There's a lot of hurtful, hateful people. Just because we're getting well doesn't mean other people are. The unfortunate side of things is sometimes these things happen. The employer can many times protect the victim from this kind of talk. The employer cannot play favorites, but he can always defend a man from needless provocation and unfair criticism, and he can also educate other employees that may think that this person is just weak or suffering from some kind of, mental breakdown, when the truth of the matter is this man's suffering from an illness with which, there is a program of action that he has to take. A lot of times, the preface to those programs are going to detoxes and rehabs to clear the mind, and a lot of people make fun of that. And you would make fun of somebody who had cancer, was, terminally sick, or AIDS, or, any of that. It's sad to see how people, character assassinate and how they treat this disease in relation to other diseases out there, when the truth of the matter is they're really no different. As a class, alcoholics are energetic people. They work hard and they play hard. A man should be on his mettle to make good. Being somewhat weakened and faced with physical and mental readjustment to a life which knows no alcohol, he may overdo. You may have to curb his desire to work 16 hours a day. You may need to encourage him to play once in a while. He may wish to do a lot for other alcoholics, and something of the sort may come up during business hours. A reasonable amount of latitude will be helpful. This work is necessary to maintain his sobriety. Now, it gets tricky when you're trying to put that into the workplace. I strongly suggest trying to keep them both separate, unless it has to do with helping someone in the workplace. When I'm on the clock, I try to keep my personal life and helping others in relation to the program of, altruism and spiritual experience out of what's happening at work. If it's someone that is at work that's struggling with that, for me, that's a different story, but I definitely try not to go into doing it while I'm on company hours. After your man has gone along without drinking for a few months, you may be able to make use of his services with other employees who are giving you the alcoholic runaround, provided, of course, they are willing to have a third party in the picture. An alcoholic who has recovered, the word recovered, we're going to go ahead and highlight that orange, but holds a relatively unimportant job, can talk to a man with a better position. A man who's mopping the floors, can help a man who is the head of the CEO of the company. Absolutely. If that man is recovered, there's no, it doesn't matter what they do, what pay scales they have, what clothes they wear. This is about helping others. None of that other stuff matters, okay? Being on a radically different basis of life, he will never take advantage of that situation. Your man may be trusted. Long experience with alcoholic excuses naturally arouses suspicion. When his wife calls, saying he is sick, you might jump to the conclusion he is drunk. If he is, and is still trying to recover, he will tell you about it, even if it means the loss of his job, because that means he's willing to go to any lengths. That means he's serious. Slips happen. I don't believe they necessarily have to. I don't believe a relapse is necessarily part of this solution, but they happen. If he really cares about getting well, he'll tell you all. He will appreciate knowing you are not bothering your head about him, that you are not suspicious, nor are you trying to run his life, so he would be shielded from temptation to drink. This is going to be highlighted orange. It says, If he is conscientiously following the program of recovery, he can go anywhere your business may call him. And that's, again, that arch through which we have built via working the 12 steps and living them. There's nowhere we can't go. We're protected by God. Our 10th step promises tell us so. And it's been something that we've pretty much all experienced. In case he does stumble even once, you will have to decide whether to let him go. If you are sure he doesn't mean business, and there is no doubt, you should discharge him then. If you can, and you can tell, especially people who have recovered. If you're the employee or the employer, who has recovered, when people are serious. And you can also tell when people are kind of, pussyfooting around, just saying the right things to maintain their paycheck and not be fired, or not be, have the police called on them for things that they've done in reference to the business. You can tell. If, on the contrary, you are sure he is doing his utmost, you may wish to give him another chance. I believe in second chances. I've been given a ton of them, and I wouldn't be sitting here before you today if they weren't given to me. How can I not give them to somebody else? But use discernment as the employer. Be able to tell without a shadow of a doubt that this person means business and wants to get well. If they've slipped and fallen, watch them pick themselves back up and dust themselves off and go right back to redoubling their efforts spiritually. If that's what you see, give that person another shot. But you should feel under no obligation to keep him on, for your obligation has been well discharged already. There's another thing you might wish to do. If your organization is a large one, your junior executives might be provided with this book. You might let them know you have no quarrel with the alcoholics of your organization. These juniors are often in a difficult position. Men under them are frequently their friends. So, for one reason or another, they cover for these men, hoping matters will take a turn for the better. A lot of times they don't. They often jeopardize their own positions by trying to help serious drinkers who should have been fired long ago, or else given an opportunity to get well. I may like a guy, I may hang out with a guy that I work with or that works for me, and not knowing what I know and having gone through what I've gone through, I may cover for this guy when the truth of the matter is he really needs to be discharged so he can hit bottom and just make a decision whether to continue to spiral out of control or get well. Most people won't make that decision to get well until they are at the wit's end. After reading this book, a junior executive can go to such a man and say approximately this: "Look here, Ed, do you want to stop drinking or not? You put me on the spot every time you get drunk. It isn't fair to me or to the firm. I have been learning something about alcoholism. If you are an alcoholic, you are a mighty sick man. You act like one. The firm wants you to get the help to get over it, and if you are interested, there is a way out." That's tremendous. I'm just going to put a big star on both sides of that paragraph. How did that man know that to tell that to Ed? Because he's read the book. He understands a doctor's opinion. He understands more about alcoholism. He understands the disease. He has read the chapter Working with Others and understands what it takes to reach Ed, to get Ed on board, to give Ed that opportunity to get well, to let him know it's not okay to put me in this situation where I'm defending while you're not at work or lying to your wife, and while I'm your friend, I care about you, and so this is what a friend would do rather than to be dirty and underhanded and be put in a situation to make these types of decisions that foster keeping you ill, okay? If you take it, your past will be forgotten, and the fact that you went away for treatment will not be mentioned. But if you cannot or will not stop drinking, I think you ought to resign. Tremendous, okay? It's a perfect way to handle it. Your junior executive may not agree with the contents of our book. He need not, and often should not, show it to his alcoholic prospect. But at least he will understand the problem and will no longer be misled by ordinary promises. He will be able to take a position by which such a man, which is eminently fair and square. He will have no further reason for covering up for an alcoholic employee. He puts himself in a place of neutrality at that point. Even if he's friends with the man or not, he's not being dragged down by the alcoholism. It boils right down to this: no man should be fired just because he is an alcoholic. If he wants to stop, he should be afforded a real chance. And I believe everyone deserves a real chance if he really wants to stop. If he cannot or does not want to stop, he should be discharged. Fire the guy. There's just no question about it. The exceptions are few. We think this method of approach will accomplish several things. It will permit the rehabilitation of good men. At the same time, you will feel no reluctance to rid yourself of those who cannot or will not stop. Alcoholism may be causing your organization considerable damage in its waste of time, men, and reputation. We hope our suggestions will help you plug up this sometimes serious leak. We think we are sensible when we urge that you stop this waste and give your worthwhile man a chance. And, again, if he's willing to go to any lengths. Some people aren't. Some people say that they are, but they're truly not willing. The other day, an approach was made to the vice president of a large industrial concern. He remarked, "I'm mighty glad you fellows got over your drinking, but the policy of this company is not to interfere with the habits of our employees. If a man drinks too much, that his job suffers, we fire him. I don't see how you can be of any help to us, for as you see, we don't have any alcoholic problem." This same company spends millions for research every year. Their cost of production is figured to a fine decimal point. They have recreational facilities. There is a company insurance. There is real interest, both humanitarian and business, in well-being of employees. But alcoholism, well, they just don't believe they have it. Perhaps this is the typical attitude. We, who have collectively seen a great deal of business life, at least from the alcoholic angle, had to smile at this gentleman's sincere opinion. He might be shocked if he knew how much alcoholism is costing his organization a year. So that's just a denial a lot of these, employers, the CEOs in these big companies have. They really don't know what's going on. The company may harbor many actual or potential alcoholics. We believe that managers of large enterprises often have little idea how prevalent this problem is. Most of the time, they're caring about the dollar signs and the decimal points and not the people that are helping them get it. Even if you feel your organization has no alcoholic problem, it might pay to take another look down the line. You may make some interesting discoveries. Of course, this chapter refers to alcoholics, sick people, deranged men. What our friend, the vice president, had in mind was the habitual or whoopee drinker. As to them, his policy is undoubtedly sound, but he did not distinguish between such people and the alcoholics. So a group of people after work, they go out, they kick back, they throw down a couple of drinks, watch some sports together. This is normal behavior for a lot of people, and they wake up and they shower, shave, feed their animals, and go right back to work. There's no lateness, there's no alcoholism, there's no DWIs, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about me. You, the potential or real alcoholic, the man or woman on page 21 of this, this publication, who once there's one, there's 12, and there's all types of pandemonium that ensues with that. The lateness of work, the coming to work with alcohol on our breath, the not showing up for work at all, the people covering for us. That's what we're talking about here, and they did not distinguish between the two. It is not to be expected that an alcoholic employee will receive a disproportionate amount of time and attention. He should not be made a favorite. Okay, let's go ahead and highlight he should not be made a favorite. Highlight that green. That's an action. That's something that you definitely do not want to do. While you want to help this person, you don't want to make them teacher's pet and give them any special treatment. They're still an employee. More times than not, they have harmed the business. You're here to try to help them, but we're not going to play favorites. There's other employees out there that shouldn't be given less favorable treatment because they're not alcoholics, okay? Because they can handle their drinking. They may be hard drinkers or social drinkers, or using it as social lubricants and things of that nature. They shouldn't be treated differently. The right kind of man, the kind who recovers, will not want this sort of thing. He will not impose. Far from it. He will work like the devil and thank you to his dying day. And believe me, like the story I told you guys in part one of this chapter, when I did this last week, the woman that I used to work for from the company that fired me for my indiscretions, I see her from time to time and I thank them. I thank her every day. You don't know what you did for me by letting me go. I had a starting point. From then on was the beginning of really me getting well, seeing that there was a problem going on other than the fact that I was sober almost over a decade, that there was still some untreated alcoholism happening and that hadn't been addressed, and I hadn't really worked the steps. I hadn't worked the steps, and that propelled me to a place where I had to get even worse and hit bottom, in sobriety before I could go up and get well and become recovered, which is what we're trying to get you all to be on the same page about by doing this work. Today, I own a little company. There are 2 alcoholic employees who produce as much as 5 normal salesmen. But why not? They have a new attitude, and they have been saved from a living death. I have enjoyed every moment spent getting them straightened out. My experience has been alcoholics, drug addicts, when we get cleaned up and we become recovered, we're some of the hardest working creative people to ever dawn the face of the earth. I've seen us do amazing things, and it's just so nice to read this chapter in reference to how good things can be. I feel like I'm a tremendous employee. I feel like I'm a blue chip worker for the company that I work for, and I really take pride in that, and I could have never gotten to this point where I can actually be trusted with a key or a combination to a safe. It's tremendous to see some of these promises manifesting themselves in the life of other drug addicts and alcoholics who have recovered from this illness and done this work. So, we have 2 chapters left. A Vision for You is my favorite chapter. It is the most highly marked up chapter. I'm going to break it up into 2 parts. And then we're going to go into Dr. Bob's Nightmare. I believe Dr. Bob's Nightmare needs to be read, even though it's further past the first 164 that I usually refer to as the roadmap to getting well. I feel like without Dr. Bob, we may not have made the same progress. I believe that every Batman needs a Robin. I believe every great baseball hitter needs somebody protecting him in the lineup. And I think Dr. Bob Smith's story needs to be told. I find it interesting that it's in the back of the book, the first one in the personal stories, while Bill's story is in the front. But we're going to read that, if for no other reason but to get a little bit more personal history about one of the co-founders of this wonderful program, and to give it the attention that it deserves. I believe Bill W. was the more arrogant of the 2 and the more cocksureness of the 2, and Dr. Bob was the more soft-spoken, voice of reason of the 2 men, and they absolutely needed each other to see this program and this fellowship develop and come to fruition. But we're going to go ahead and read that too. So we've got 2 more chapters. We've got 4 more weeks, and then we'll be done with the program. So that's all for today. A little shorter submission. We didn't have too much to go over. That's 2 employers. This is for all you employers out there, alcoholic or not, recovered or not. There's some information here that is absolutely pertinent to helping others. All these chapters, the one to wives, the one to employers, the one about the family, it's like by this time, a full-on spiritual experience. If you followed the program in detail, the way it's written in this book, there's no question that your life is different. And if you're out there helping other people and trusting God and not other people, you have to be feeling good. At this point of the book, go back and read the promises. Ask yourself, are these things happening to me? If the answer is no, you might want to look at the green parts of the book. What part of the actions have you not done to this point? It's been very clear, I believe, that the book has written everything out masterfully, and it's easy to follow once we're willing to go to any lengths. And so that's all for this week. Thank you again, everyone, for allowing me to serve. My name is Dexter. I am a recovered drug addict alcoholic. Next week, we will start at Chapter 11, A Vision for You. We'll be done before you know it. And hopefully, I have been able to reach at least one person. The goal is to help others. And if I've reached one person, this 10, 11-month project, 1-year project that I've put together has absolutely been worth everything I thought it would be. Until next week, everyone, namaste.